Morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our special IFM 55 panel discussion, where it's our theme is how house build to last, and the title for this panel is International Alumni, Global Perspectives and Shared Perspectives. Today we are here to celebrate our 55th anniversary here at the Afro American Cultural Center, also formerly known as the House. The House has been a beacon for our community, activism, empowerment for Black students here at Yale and beyond. Um, as we reflect on this milestone, we also look forward to the next 55 years, exploring how the House has shaped our global alumni network and continues to foster meaningful connections across the continent. This discussion will be recorded and made available on the House YouTube channel and as well as shared on the weekly newsletter and the AFM 55 website. We encourage you to engage with this and share this conversation with your networks and everybody you know. So thank you guys for being here. And with that, we'll get started. So to begin, we're gonna just go around and introduce ourselves. Please share your name, where you're from, where you currently call home, and then your Yale affiliation, and then what you're doing professionally right now. So I think we can start off with, right now my pin is Aubrey. I can get you to start off.
Okay, great. Well, good to meet everyone, and I hope to see many of you in person in a couple of weeks. So I'm Aubrey McCutcheon. I graduated Yale College 79 in Trumbull College, 1979. Home originally is Detroit, Michigan. Now I live between Washington, D.C. and Addis Ababa. And I'm a consultant in the development sector after a career in law and development and human rights. And now I freelance as a consultant in those sectors. Good to meet everyone.
You, um, Mr. Kwaku, I'm seeing you next. Oh no.
Okay, no worries. Hi, everyone. I'm Kwaku Osei. I'm originally from Ghana, and I'm currently splitting my time between Accra, Ghana, and Casablanca, Morocco. I was Yale College, class of 2011, Saybrook College. And I'm a lawyer, but I'm currently working in-house with Africa 50, which is a Pan-African infrastructure investor and asset manager. Hence the split between Casablanca and Accra. Casablanca is where the office is, and Accra is where the home is. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Mr. Ikenna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ikenna Nzewi. I'm a Nigerian American. I was born in North Carolina and attended Yale College, graduated in 2017 with a computer science degree. I was in Jonathan Edwards College. Today, I'm calling in from Kenya, but I spend most of my time in Nigeria, where I run a company called Relief. At Relief, we basically invent and operate food processing technology and have also gotten started in carbon removal. Great to be on the call with everybody.
Next up, we have Adwoa.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I feel like a baby over here. My name is Adwoa Danso Dodoo. I am also from Ghana. I just graduated from your college in May 2024. I majored in chemical engineering and got a certificate in education studies. And I'm currently still at Yale, pursuing like a master's degree in technology management at the School of Management. So still in New Haven, but hoping to go back home to Ghana after a couple of years, maybe working in consulting. So I do have an offer to start with McKinsey after graduation.
Thank you. Now Ruth, Miss Ruth.
Hi, my name is Ruth Botsio, Yale College class of 2009, Berkeley. And I am from Ghana, and I moved back home eventually after a stint in the UK. So I live in Ghana now. I'm a communication strategist, so I'm the head of strategic communications at Ghana's Ministry of Finance. So I'm leading the communications concerning our current IMF program and, things to do with that. And it's great to be here. Great to see everyone. Thanks.
Thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. So now we'll just take a step back and talk about your journey here at Yale. What led you to choose Yale, and then how did you connect with the house? So that would be the first question for this panel. We'll go in the same order.
Okay. Well, that leaves me first. Thanks again. Yeah, I transferred into Yale in my freshman year from another institution after one semester, and originally thought, let me try New Haven and Yale and see how I like that compared to the school I did my first semester at. And I thought, well, if I like better I stay. If not, I'll go back. But I think it was certainly my experience with BSAY and with the house and the community that I developed there, the activities that we were involved in that were important to me at that era, that motivated me to stay. And ended up finishing my 4 years there and finishing one semester early, but in the class of '79. I knew that especially in the late '70s, to be a student at Yale, I felt extremely privileged, extremely blessed to be there compared to people from my hometown, people in my family, and so on. And I was looking for a way that I could both, pursue studies and make a social contribution to the civil rights movement that was at its tail end in the late '70s. But so many of those issues, as they are continued today, were still so alive and challenging. And being able to be involved in that at the house and through BSAY was certainly what kept me at Yale.
It's lovely to hear. So next up.
I think I'm next, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
So in terms of getting to Yale and why I chose to come to Yale, coming out of high school, I was just kind of trying to get into the best university I could get into, like most high school students, and applying across the board. Yale did have a certain level of attraction. I mean, they say representation matters, right? And coming from Ghana, I knew a lot of smart Ghanaians who had gone to Yale who I looked up to, including people like Ruth, who were a couple of years ahead of me and were there. And, it was clear that it was a place that attracted people I wanted to be like. So once I was lucky enough to get the offer, it was almost a no-brainer. And thankfully, because of the good financial aid package, it also made sense. So yeah, it was a no-brainer really once I got the offer. Getting to Yale then, kind of YASA was a place that naturally was a natural home for me, and all the people I mentioned that I look up to were parts of YASA. And YASA was in the house, and I guess that was my introduction to the house, was coming in through YASA. And I found a lot of other community at the house, having first been introduced to YASA. So I was very active later on in things like the Black Men's Union, also at the house. So the house became kind of a home away from home, which is important, especially kind of for international students. So that was kind of how I ended up at Yale, and then how I got so involved in the house later on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ikenna.
Yeah, on my end, the decision to go to Yale was pretty easy. It was an amazing institution that I got into. It was interesting because I did get into another very prestigious university on the West Coast, and I thought that school was my dream school before I got into Yale. But after Bulldog days and coming to campus and getting to see it, it was a no-brainer to go to Yale. And then I also had a cousin who was starting at MIT, so it seemed like the family should remain in New England and spend more time around one another. As far as activities at the house while I was at Yale, I helped refound the Urban Improvement Corps. So the Urban Improvement Corps was a one-on-one tutoring organization that began in 1968, but had basically fallen out of commission when I got onto campus in 2013. So along with my best friend, we refounded the organization, got its endowment together, and got the organization up and running. I still keep an eye on UIC. It seems to be up and running still pretty well at the house today. So major accomplishment. Similar to Kwaku, I was also rather involved in the Black Men's Union. I was the treasurer and vice president. I was very passionate about helping other folks secure those internship opportunities. And people that I met in the BMU were the first folks that introduced me to Bain and Company. I didn't know it was a firm before getting to Yale, and I worked there briefly after graduating before starting my company.
That's really, really good to hear. Miss Adwoa.
Yeah, okay, my journey was a little different. I applied to the Yale Young Global Scholars Program in my junior year of high school and got into the program came to the US for the first time. And I was in, New Haven at Yale for 2 weeks doing this like applied science program, applied science and engineering program, through that, program. And it was great. It was great. I loved Yale's campus. I got to sit in on lectures. I got to see more of their like engineering school space, all of that. I got to interact with other people who were interested in also going to Yale. I think before then, I had just heard about Yale and I knew that was like a great school, but I wasn't particularly sure like if I had a dream school. But I think after that experience, like Yale became that for me. And I came with my mom as well, so she was very much interested in us coming here. So I applied after that program and I got in with a great financial aid offer, as Kweku said, because I got into a couple of other schools, but Yale's one was better. But also I love the school, so here I am. I was involved in a couple of things at the house, extracurricular activities and student orgs at the house. During my time, I think the two major ones were YASA, the Yale African Students Association, and the Yale Gospel Choir.
Yes.
So YASA, I served like I came into Yale, I don't know, my first semester was remote. I was in Ghana for that because of COVID, and then came in the spring and then was like immediately, introduced to the YASA board as secretary and then as social chair the next year. And then YGC, I was a part of that for my last 3 years at Yale. And yeah, that's how I got introduced to the house and the house community. And yeah, it's been great since.
Adwoa is also Yale Gospel Choir president. I think my
Like,
sophomore year. So she forgot to mention that, but
wow,
yes.
Abby.
Okay, Miss Ruth, you're next up.
Thank you. So for me, from Ghana, like Kweku, I knew a lot of people who'd gone to great universities abroad. And so among all the Ivy Leagues and the other universities, Yale is the one that stood out the most for me, especially because at that time there was an internationalization drive to bring more international students to Yale or good financial aid packages. And I just felt that Yale had that diversity, that sense of leadership and responsibility and community that I wanted to embody as I grew up. So for me, Yale was absolutely my first choice. And funny story, African parent pressure, you cannot put an application to Yale without putting in one to Harvard. So actually, I did Yale early and Harvard and a couple of other schools regular. And by God's grace, I got into Yale early, good financial aid package, and immediately withdrew my Harvard application because I did not want to have that temptation or that kind of pressure to go to that school up north. So we thank God I was at Yale. I wasn't disappointed at all. It was everything I expected to be and more, even after graduation. I mean, people are so communal. People have a shared ethos. People find a way of coming together to make a difference. And I think that has sustained the Yale bonds. For me at the house, the Black church was one way that I plugged into the house very early on. And then of course YASA. YASA was a home away from home for all of us. And those Thursday night meetings made all the cold New Haven nights worth it. So the YASA, the Black church, and then also the people at the house, the leadership. In my time, the dean was Dean George, and she was absolutely phenomenal. She was a great source of support for us. And then we also had the ethnic counselor. In my final year, I was selected to be an ethnic counselor to help mentor some of the young Black students coming in. And personally, for me, the house was a great space for me to navigate living in the United States, because for the first time ever, I was meeting people with very, indigenous Ghanaian and Nigerian names and very heavy American accents. And it was very confusing at first, like Ikenna is saying he's a Nigerian American, but when I first came to Yale, I didn't even know what that meant. So the AFAM house was a very safe space for me, and I guess many other people, to navigate the different shades of Blackness and, really understand that we're one people situated in different parts of the globe. So, I mean, the house was critical to my Yale experience.
Wow. Thank you so much for that response. You guys are answering the next question I had for you. What kind of clubs or activities you guys were involved with here at the house or at Yale? So I'll just move on to the next question that I have. One of the most powerful aspects of the house is how it nurtures leadership and activism. How did being part of this space influence your career path and personal growth? So we'll start off with Mr. Aubrey again.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was involved in BSAY from freshman year, from first semester, and got increasingly involved as the years went on. Eventually became co-chair in my junior year. And at that time, you can imagine the issues we were facing in the late 70s. I was at Yale from 75 to 79. There was a big movement around Yale-New Haven relations. I wouldn't be surprised if that's still an issue on campus today. Town-gown relations. What was Yale's, interaction with the New Haven community? How were New Haven residents treated as they crossed the campus, and so on. We were also, BSAY at that time was involved in the anti-Bakke decision, which was one of the earliest cases attempting to overturn affirmative action. Again, another issue we're still struggling with today. And we were very much involved in the Yale anti-apartheid movement, which was led by BSAY, and eventually BSAY, along with other student groups, created the Anti-Apartheid Coalition. Those influences, I think, were tremendous for me, at campus and in future career. Shaped the years I had there at school and my later career choices. One example is BSAY brought the Dawson Five and the Team Defense Project to campus. This was a program in the South, a legal program, public interest law organization that worked against capital punishment, and it only represented indigent defendants. And the Dawson Five was a group of young Black teenagers who were falsely arrested in Dawson, Georgia, thrown in prison, and were facing the death penalty. Team Defense led this campaign. So as they were, or a few of them were released, we brought them to the campus to do major activities, both in New Haven and on campus. What I did at Yale even influenced, well, I should say I later went on right out of school down to Georgia and worked for the Team Defense Project as a VISTA volunteer. The program was called at that time. It's now called the AmeriCorps program in the rural South as a community organizer. Later, the work I did at Yale in the anti-apartheid community led me to do work with the national anti-apartheid movement. I worked for the Washington Office on Africa and just stayed involved in that movement. That's really shaped a lot of the work I've done in my career since. Let me stop there and I'll contribute again later in a minute.
Wow, that was really amazing to hear. Just all the activism you must have done and like how BSAY was like in the past. I think that was just an amazing story for us to hear. Mr. Kwaku, if you have a response.
Yeah, sure. I relate to a lot of what Aubrey was saying. I do think that my experience at Yale, especially at the house, was service really does run through the veins of the house and through its kind of DNA. All of the organizations that were housed at the FM house had some sort of a service component. And it really drove home kind of the importance of having that service mentality. I think the slogan "For God, for Country, for Yale" really embodies that. And I think that runs through the house as well. It helped me figure out that whatever it is that I was going to end up doing in my career, I wanted it to have a focus on serving others, right? So eventually I've ended up at an organization that is focused on achieving sustainable development for Africa. And I think it's that sort of training and that focus that helped me direct my career in the right way. I think the other point, the other way the house really shaped kind of my career path is teaching me the power of community. It's so important to be able to foster a space where you have that feeling of belonging, that sense of community, because it empowers you, right? Even from a purely professional perspective, we often think of networking as trying to get into spaces we don't belong. Whereas some of the best networking I did at Yale and subsequently came from those communities of my own, right? Instead of looking, outside and looking top of me, I just look next to you, right? And that's where the best bonds are formed. And the number of opportunities and words of advice and counsel I've gotten from people that I met just hanging out in the house has been much more influential than any business card I gave out at any conference. Um, the other thing which strikes me is, I think Ruth mentioned this earlier, but it provides kind of a safe space to kind of explore difficult questions of identity and have debates in a space that you know there's mutual respect and love. And the house really gave me that. I think while I was there was lots of debates about kind of African versus African American relations and the role of the house, whether it is a place that is kind of useful or does it segregate students. And we were able to really dive into some of those debates and shape the way we think, but also learn how to engage proactively in a respectful debate, which I was very grateful for. And I think having that space, just alluding to that debate about the role the House serves, there's some criticism that it's an exclusionary presence because some people just like live in the House and don't interact. I mean, I think that I like to see it more as like a tether that allows me to explore the wider Yale community. Because if I didn't have that home base that I could come back to, it would have been really difficult, I think, for me to integrate into the wider community. And I did end up doing that, right? So I was doing a lot of stuff with the International Relations Association. I was in grad strategies, doing a lot of kind of stuff in the wider Yale community, which I don't think I would have been felt empowered to do if I didn't have that tether to the house that allowed me to come back, recharge, be with my community, and then go out again and explore. So for me, those are the things that really stuck out.
That was a great response. Thank you so much. Now Mr. Ikenna.
Yeah, I strongly resonate with Kwaku on the point of the tether. So my time at Yale, I think the house is really instrumental in the very early part of my career, kind of the internship part of the career. So like I mentioned, it's people from the house, people through the Black Men's Union that introduced management consulting to me, that did the case prep with me on Saturdays and Sundays, the resume review, all of those things. So I was able kind of early at my time at Yale to have a pretty clear path to full-time employment. And that opened up a lot of space for me to start thinking about what I could do on top of that in the form of entrepreneurship. So I ended up studying computer science at Yale, and I decided that I wanted to move into entrepreneurship and technology as a field. And as a Nigerian American, I also felt the need to reconnect with my Nigerian roots. My parents are both Nigerian, but until I came to Yale and until my junior year, I'd actually never been back to the continent. And so it was through relationships and an organization that I formed while at Yale, of course, in the house, that I came back to Nigeria for the first time and determined that I would move back to the continent after graduation. And so after my company received an investment from Y Combinator, spring of my senior year, I moved back to Nigeria, traveled to about 20 states in 6 months, and ended up establishing the agro-industrial business that I have. So I certainly feel that I would not be on the continent like calling in today. I wouldn't be running the business that I am if not for the AFM House. So I'm very grateful for the relationships in the community there.
That was truly inspiring. I'm also Nigerian American, just to connect on that. Yeah, I have a similar experience with you, as in when it comes to like time to go back to the continent or like going back home, I haven't made the time during the summers. I feel like after I graduate from here, I think I might try to go on the same path or like try to go back home, explore more of the continent, see where I can like have my impact or influence. So I feel like this conversation is very inspiring to me as a current Yale student. Thank you for your response.
Absolutely. I'll be in touch, Abby. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Definitely possible.
Miss Adwoa.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Kwaku said that resonated with me was the point about like having difficult conversations. I think that was one of the great things that the house kind of gave me, is the confidence to have these difficult conversations and just like a safe space to have them. The community is great. Like I was able to meet my closest friends here at Yale through the house and house events. And it's just a mixture of us Africans and African Americans every day having difficult conversations, literally. The name of the group is called Yappa Yappa, like because we're just yappers. We just all we do is talk. Um, but yeah, like this is conversation not just about like things like identity and race, but also about our contributions to our communities, our various communities, because all of us are coming from different places. Someone is from Rwanda, someone is from New York, but then it was planning to go back to Mali because that's where her family is from. Someone's from Cameroon. But like it's just a great mix of people, and we're always constantly talking about how we can contribute back to our community. So I haven't had the chance, like everyone else here on this panel, to actually like start my career. I guess it started already because I have graduated. But I haven't yet, stepped into the real world of working. But I do hope that because of these conversations and because of like the wisdom that I've been able to gain from the people around me, I'm able to actually go back home and then have some kind of impact, like give back what I've gotten. I've gotten a lot of resources, connections, a great education from Yale, and I hope to, propagate that and give other people the same like chance that I got. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much. Now we move on to Miss Ruth. She has some.
Thank you. So for me, I think one of the biggest takeaways from Yale that helped, or from the house that helped me in my professional career, continues to help me, is that exposure to Black excellence. Leaving Ghana to go to the US, I'd never had to contend with, sort of that pressure of having to perform and excel with your skin color or your ethnicity always being a factor in consideration. But at the house, I understood that unfortunately, sometimes you'd be judged based on that. So you had to work extra hard, you had to work smarter. But then also, what I really value was that exposure early on to alumni and to staff who were minorities, but who were excelling. So for me, I think the house gave me that exposure through the alumni reunion, the homecoming weekends, the anniversaries, to Black people who had come through Yale, who had excelled, who were leaders in their fields. And it made me see that, there's a role for everyone to play, even on the global stage, and that, you shouldn't be intimidated. Your place at role at Yale is warranted. You earned it. And your place wherever you want to go in future, be it Wall Street, a magic circle firm, any government, your own business, you deserve that place. And it was great to see people and examples and role models that we could look up to. Another thing for me is every organization that I joined at the house and outside of the house, that is YASA, the International Students Organization, ASEMPA. We helped to found ASEMPA, the Gospel Choral Group, whilst I was at Yale. And somehow, I just kept being nominated as the public relations officer or the communications liaison. And then I just thought, well, it's because, I don't know, maybe like I like talking or something like that. But eventually here I am. I have a background in law. I'm a UK qualified barrister, but I work in communication. So it wasn't a mistake at all. Like every opportunity, every exposure I had, and every encouragement. I mean, sometimes our leaders, our mentors, they see things in us that we don't even see. I remember Dean George encouraging me to participate in the Yale undergraduate public speaking competition. Now, mind you, this wasn't for international students, it wasn't for Black students, it was the whole Yale. And I'm like, Dean George, what are you thinking? You want me to go and stand with those YPU guys and do what? But she was on to something. The first year I went, I was third. The second year, she's like, you need to go again. I was second. And eventually I was first, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, up until this day, I'm like, did that really happen? So I think that, she saw the gift in me, and she encouraged me to explore it within the different avenues that were available at Yale. And today, here I am, and I'm a very happy communicator.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on that. I a lot of the questions you guys are like, you're just giving a lot of responses and it's answering my questions. But what I'll do is like ask this question. What type of values or skills did you think that you attained from either participating in events at the house or participating in groups at the house? And then how did you use these values and skills inside your careers or your endeavors now that you're outside and alumni's? Yeah, how did you guys use your skills and values? We'll
So I'll
start.
jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, so as I mentioned, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and as you can imagine, the social justice and civil rights movements at that time in Detroit were largely domestic issues. We were focused on the challenges we were facing in the U.S. at that time. Um, I think by the time I got to Yale, it allowed me really to collaborate with other student groups. Despierta Boricua, DB, I hope it still exists, collaborated with us strongly. The Asian Student Alliance collaborated with us around all of the issues we were campaigning around: nuclear weapons freeze, anti-death penalty, anti-apartheid work, Yale-New Haven relations. And I think it was a period of time and an experience that allowed us to really to see the commonality of our human rights movements across these various communities, much unlike what I experienced growing up and going to high school in Detroit. Later, as I entered my professional career, it was the strategy that we used on campus was the same strategy that I realized so many NGOs and civil society groups working internationally were using, collaborating, as a strategy in international spaces with our diaspora and with people from other third world communities that were facing similar struggles. So I think those kind of values and connections really helped to shape the strategies that I've continued to use in social justice and human rights movements around the world, places I've been.
Thank you so much for your response. Mr. Kwaku, you're next.
Sure. For me, I mean, there were a few things. I think getting involved in activities and kind of groups at the house, there's like certain hard skills you learn, right? Like just how to organize, time management, the very basic stuff that you're not necessarily getting in the classroom, right? It's all the stuff outside and how do you put an event together and how do you raise money and like Aubrey says, kind of collaborating across different groups to bring an idea or an event to life. That is something that I think we all use in our careers, but you're not going to pick that up in a lecture hall. I think the other piece of it, though, is really being exposed to, like Ruth says, Black excellence and examples of leadership in the house. I mean, like Dean George for me was also a fantastic mentor, but the house was full of people like her who were really able to model effective service leadership. And that's something that we then, at least for me, I could then take into kind of my career. The other thing is Ruth mentioned the ethnic counselor program that later on then became the peer liaison program. And I was lucky enough to be one of the peer liaisons working at the house. And I think that role you have mentoring other students and helping to guide them through the Yale experience, those skills you learn and being able to help manage people and having that pastoral care, kind of those skills are invaluable as you get further in your career and you become a manager and in a leadership role within your organizations. Being able to draw on those skills you learned and when people are going through difficult situations or not and being able to help guide them. I learned that through the house and that has been invaluable. And finally, I think the other thing that I think I picked up was resilience. Some of the best times I remember in the house where we've been busy all day with some sort of event or something. It's now 2 a.m. We have essays due the next morning, and we're all riding what we call the struggle bus. But we were in it together, right? And sharing tips and trips on how to kind of keep going when things are really difficult and you're tired and supporting each other. That is what I picked that up in the house, nowhere else. So that's one of the things that's really helped me during very difficult periods of my career and grad school, and I'm forever grateful to the house for that.
Okay, thank you so much for your. Okay, can I? You
Sorry. Yeah, on my end, just a few things. I think like Black excellence, especially in communication, was taught at the house. I remember like former presidents of like the Black Men's Union, BSA, BK, just being folks, just great orators that I wanted to listen to. Of course, interview preparation, that was huge and a really instrumental part of the way that I interacted at the house, especially receiving that help and then, paying it forward as well later into my years. And then I would say that the last thing that I really took away from my time at the house was really like first seeking to understand other people and groups and ideas, and then second to be understood. I think because Blackness is such an amorphous description of ourselves, and people have such different experiences. Experiences at the house really gave me an opportunity to say like, okay, there are different points of view, and I should actually show that I understand somebody else's point of view before I really start pushing on mine. They were rather contentious times, I would say, like within the Black community, like while I was on campus. This was like kind of after the Mike Brown shooting, Trayvon Martin, things of that nature. And there were aspects of it that almost pulled the community apart. And so I think I really took away that empathy piece. And it's great to see the house as a more cohesive, loving space again.
Thank you so much. Next up, Adwoa.
Yeah, I think I can echo a lot of the things that have been said already. I've picked up a lot of skills from especially from working as a student leader in some of the house residential groups. Like during my time with YASA and even with YGC, like just learning how to communicate with people, I think was such an important piece. Because I don't know, coming from Ghana, like communication was very much one way. It's really people would just tell you what to do and you do it kind of vibe. And I don't know, it's just like coming to a different space and interacting with people from different backgrounds with different experiences and different ways that they like to communicate. Different, I don't know, it was just interesting. And so me coming in with my own preconceptions and with my own background and experience and communicating in a way that I would think would be understood it just doesn't sit, you know. And so just kind of learning that and how to meet people where they are and how to, you know, speak effectively, I think was really great. I think another skill that I learned was like fundraising. And it was tough. Like Abby saw us during YGC spring tour fundraising initiatives. It was very, very tough. But I've come to realize that actually this is what happens in the real world. Like you have to chase people for money crazy. And I'm currently using those skills now because I'm working with ventures. I'm working as a venture associate with City, the Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale. And I'm working with ventures, helping them, you know, raise capital for their like companies and using some of these skills like cold calling, cold emailing, but almost begging is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, I think maybe the last thing is like organizing events. I've used that skill countless times now in the master's program, working with other people, older people even, just helping them to organize events and, you know, bring in speakers, organize for food, all of those things I learned from working with YGC and with YASA.
Thank you so much. Now, Ms. Ruth, if you can give us our
Yeah. So I'd echo what everyone has said, especially what Adwoa just spoke about in terms of organizational skills. I remember when we decided to launch out and try and put together the first Africa Week at Yale. It was a big task, and we were quite a small group, but we had so much support, and it really helped me in particular to hone my organizational and leadership skills. And more importantly, it helped me to develop that skill of dealing with management and executives who are busy. Like, you know, I mean, for example, Abigail, the emails you send are fantastic. And, you know, that's the kind of work we had to do, because if you're emailing the dean of your college, he doesn't have time. So you better make sure you're giving him all the information he needs. And I think that's a skill that, you know, my involvement in organizing, you know, big events through the house helped me to develop. That helps me even now as I have to deal with government officials and so on. So I was glad for that early exposure, you know, at Yale.
Thank you so much for that response. So I'll introduce the next question. As we celebrate the 55th anniversary, what do you guys hope that the House will continue to represent and stand for in the next 55 years? So, Mr. Aubrey.
Okay, thanks. Well, I mean, it's inspiring even to hear from you all who attended Yale after I did. You know, when UIC was there, I'm really sorry to hear that it ever did close, but I'm so happy to hear that you were able to bring it back. BSAY was there, the Black Church at Yale was there, the Gospel Choir was there. YASA, I'd never heard of it. It didn't exist. Frankly, there were very, very few students from the continent that attended with us in the late 70s. And there was definitely an issue about whether African American students were doing enough to embrace African students, the few African students who were on campus, and how much they were involved in Black Student Alliance. I mean, by the time I went on from Yale and went to law school, we even changed the name of BALSA, which was a Black American Law Student Association. We just changed it to Black Law Student Association and made a conscious, proactive effort to draw in more students from the continent, knowing that our struggle was not just about the condition of Black people in the U.S. That's the name that continues with BALSA today, BLSA. But I hope that in the next period, just as you all continued on with the struggle that we left in the late 70s, that in the next 55 years, Yale continues to produce students that will devote at least part of their career to social activism and social justice and movements for human rights and equality. Certainly it's needed. Here we are in 2025, and so many of the issues we were struggling with, back then are still alive and still challenging us. And, without becoming too political in these comments, perhaps even, being challenged and thrown back in a more forceful way than we've ever seen since then. So I hope Yale continues to produce students like that. When I was in my freshman year, there was a short-term split between two organizations. One was the BSU, Black Student Union, and Black Student Alliance. I don't know if you've heard about that period, but there ended up being two organizations. The House had to host them both and organize meetings and so on. And the issue between the two groups was whether or not our student groups should exist to help our professional and career development only, or whether somehow as a student organization based at the House made up of African American students on campus, we should be somehow involved in social movements, in the civil rights movement of the era and things that were going on in New Haven, and whether we should be promoting social activism amongst students, or whether we should simply be promoting scholarship and professional development. The two organizations found a way through that split. So the split was short-lived. And I think today we did learn that you can be both. The student organization can address your needs as career and professional development, as well as community needs and the obligations we have to our community. So I certainly hope the next 55 years, Yale continues to do that. As I said, the experience I had at the House and BSAY shaped me indelibly. I mean, I've now lived in 9 different countries, including Nigeria and Ghana. And the first thing I did is, after first year of law school, was to go to University of Legon to do a legal exchange program. Our thirst was to get to the continent that we had not seen. So much of that work still needs to be done, and I hope that's what the next half century of Yale produces in terms of House and BSA.
Thank you so much for that insightful response, Mr. Kwaku.
So I think it's clear to me that we're existing in very difficult times, right? And I think not just in the U.S. but globally, a lot of the issues that I certainly care about seem to be under attack, right? Some of the issues that Aubrey's talking about, ideas of social justice and equity, seem to be under attack from all corners. And I think one of the things that I believe firmly is that the House was born and shaped in a storm. I remember being at the House and hearing all of the stories around the Yale-New Haven relations or the Black Panther trials, and I think the House was made for moments like this. I do think that the House can be a powerful voice in advancing some of those issues and defending some of those issues that we do care about. I think the House has always played that role. So I really hope that the House doesn't shy away from this moment now and these moments to come over the next 55 years. I really see the House and its students, I see the House providing a space for people to really help lead and drive those conversations and be a kind of a focus point where people who care about these issues can come together and really help galvanize those movements. So I'm as worrying as the times we are in now, I'm also hopeful and glad that places like the House do still exist. And I do hope that the House continues to play that role going forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ikenna.
Yeah, on my end, I hope the House continues to be a springboard for exploration of the diaspora. I was fortunate to attend the 50th anniversary of the Black Panthers my senior year, which was like an incredible experience for me as a Nigerian American who grew up in the South, to connect with the Black Power movement in Oakland, to meet people that were a part of that movement, and also see how learn about different things that have occurred in U.S. history, like COINTELPRO, because I was not aware of them before that time. I've mentioned already that, through relationships built at the house, I ended up going back to Nigeria, and then moving to Nigeria to run my business. And I know the house has actually organized trips for students to the continent. And so I hope over the next 55 years, we build endowments, we get people to explore different parts of the diaspora, whether that be in Brazil, in Oakland, in Nairobi, but just to see the vast expanse of Blackness throughout the world.
Thank you so much, Ms. Adwoa.
Yeah, I hope that the house continues to be a safe space for people to come together and learn about each other, to be able to ask questions freely and confidently, and get answers from their peers for learning. I think YASA recently started something, well, I think it was like 2 years ago, called the Teach In series. I don't know if Abby've been able to attend any of them. But then this is basically them bringing in experts in different like fields, in different maybe regions, geographical regions, to come and teach students about like the issues going on. So for example, they had like a teaching on the war going on in Sudan. Or just, I think last week they had a teaching about education in Africa, and the person who was speaking had taught in, I think, Ghana, Zimbabwe, like a couple of different countries. And he came and, spoke to us about the issues that are facing education in Africa and how we can contribute as students and, as future leaders, or, in our careers, in our various careers. So I think things like that are very helpful. They're very useful because now we can actually like learn about people's backgrounds, and expand our own minds, and then actually know the problems that are facing people that we can contribute to with our own skill sets and experiences. And so I hope that the house can maybe expand that program a little bit and make it like a house thing. Like every month they bring in someone who's going to teach about something and encourage people to ask questions and encourage learning. Thanks.
Sounds like a great idea. I'll talk to Dean Bethel. Yes. Ms. Ruth, you can give a response.
Thanks, Abby. For me, it's non-negotiable that, over the next 55 years, the next decades, the house should continue to be a home to all the Black students that come to Yale, as many as gravitate towards it, because each and every one of us come from different places, some from very far, some from New Haven, but even that, what you experience at Yale is usually very different from anything you've ever experienced before. So it's important for me that the house continues to be a home, and like the other panelists have said, a safe space for you to navigate that new experience. So for me, it's important that, we feel a sense of belonging. And, the good book tells us in Deuteronomy that he brought us out from there to bring us back in and give us the land that he promised on oath to our ancestors. So each one of us has some level of mobility globally across the United States, but that sense of belonging is what anchors us. And even as alumni, that is how I see that the house, as that anchor for us as we try to embody Black excellence in our careers.
Very powerful response. Thank you so much. In light of just in respect to everyone's time, this will probably be the last question. And I wanted to end on a light note, like a very happy note. So the last question is, what is your favorite moment in the house? Like, what was something that brought you joy? What brought a smile to your face? So what was your favorite moment at the house? Mr. Aubrey, if you can get us started.
Wow, you're really taxing my memory, but there were so many. Those Tuesday night meetings, really, every Tuesday night that I came to a BSAY meeting. I don't know when you hold them now, but I knew that I had something to learn outside of those classes that I was attending, and I knew I had it to learn with my own community and with people who would help me absorb this knowledge and figure out how to put it to use. So as I came to those those meetings every Tuesday night for BSAY meetings, and during the time where it was that split, we had our agenda of the organization as well as our political education sessions, where we went into issues and talked to lecturers and activists around the country that we brought in that we would never have been introduced to in any other classroom on this campus. I think those were some of my happiest moments attending those Tuesday night meetings.
Thank you so much.
For me, I like food, and I was a hungry college student, and I knew there was an event in the house. The food was going to be better than whatever was in the sacred dining hall on that day. So some of my best memories were like people cooking jollof or ordering out from the soul food places. Yeah, the house kept me very well fed. And as you can tell, I haven't been able to shed some of that.
Thank you.
So for me, definitely Black Solidarity Conference. So one of my good friends, he's actually from Oakland, was in charge of the event. And one of my favorite rappers at the time, his name was Mick Jenkins. So over the summer, we studied abroad together in Spain, and I kept playing Mick Jenkins music and encouraging him that like Mick Jenkins should come to BSC and perform. So I was able to convince him. Mick Jenkins came to campus. I was able to meet him backstage at Toad Place. It was really cool to like meet one of my favorite rappers through the influence and the power that Yale and the house have through the Black Solidarity Conference, all the people that come on campus and pay money so we can have a cool performer. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight for me.
Thank you so much.
I think I'm going to second Kwaku. I also love the food that the house provides. They recently started something called Waffles at the House. And guys, I love breakfast, especially breakfast for dinner. And they provide that, I think, like maybe twice a semester. I'm always there, ask Abby. But I think another thing, my favorite memories would be Yas Africa Week. Like every single year, I'm always impressed. It's just always such a great time. So Ruth, it's so amazing to meet you because you're part of the first class that organized that. Oh my gosh. It's such like it's a big thing on campus now. I don't know if you know, but they bring in like artists from the continent to come and perform. Last year we had Fave, who's like an up and coming artist, is really just an amazing time, an amazing week for African events. So yeah.
Thank
That
you.
is amazing. That's amazing to hear, Adwoa, and so heartwarming. And I mean, Kwaku was also very actively involved in the founding of the Africa Weekend. Yeah, we're very happy to hear that it's going on and it's going from strength to strength. I'd say that, one of my favorite memories, of the house or the house events was the house tailgate at the game. Now till today, American football does not make sense to me, but that tailgate makes sense. And I'll trek all the way to the Yale Bowl just to enjoy the camaraderie, the food, and the fun at the tailgate. Yeah, it was great. It was great. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for giving us a response for my questions today. It was lovely to hear about your like favorite experiences and memories. And this was a very rich and inspiring conversation. And thank you guys for just sharing your journeys and wisdom and like just all the things that you get gone through here at Yale. To close out, we just wanted to tell the audience member that this will be available on the AFM 55 newsletter, the website, also on our YouTube channel. So if you want to tell people to tune in, to watch, and also invite people to come to the AFM 55 celebration weekend, please tell your friends. And it was just inspiring to hear from all of you guys today. Thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you. I hope to
Thank
meet
you. Great to
every
meet
one of you
everyone.
in a few weeks. Yeah.
See you all soon.
Meet in person.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.